Welcome, everyone, to this inaugural episode of Live at the Nutmeg Tavern. Yes, we've kind of rebranded, reshifted. We've been working on this for a long time, and here we are finally in the Nutmeg Tavern. The other folks here. I'm John Townsend, obviously, probably familiar with me. There's Ryan is back here.
Hello.
And he's in charge of that stuff back there. On the other side, in the modern world, Aaron is on the console making all that electronic-y stuff happen.
Yep.
And Kyle is in the question seat making all that chat stuff work, whatever. So if you're talking to somebody, you're talking to one of those guys back there. And they would love to have some questions, right? You need some questions?
Yes. Oh,
Get your questions.
Yeah,
in.
Kyle's looking for some questions. Wow, it's been 2 weeks since I've been here. I mean, last Friday we were on the road coming back from Plymouth Plantation out in Plymouth, Massachusetts. We had a tremendous time there. Such a great visit. It wasn't specifically a visit for making videos, but I did making videos while I was there because I have to make videos, right? And so we had a lot of fun with that. And now I'm out of a voice. Ryan's got something for us today. Do we want to go to that, Ryan?
We want to go right to the drink?
Or should we do something else?
Well, let's talk a little bit about this tavern. Let's talk about the tavern before we have delicious drinks.
So we've been working on the idea of the live stream for, obviously a long time, but we thought we wanted some more cohesive kind of a theme and a warmer idea here for that. We thought it would be really interesting, the idea that taverns in the 18th century were really meeting places. And it would be like someone's home in the 18th century, maybe a bigger home. And somebody that had a tavern home inn like this, they would invite people to come and stay at their house. They would have this common room in the front of the house that people could come, and they had bar facilities, and they served food, and it was just a meeting place for a whole community as well as travelers that are coming through. So the tavern theme is sort of perfect for what we're doing here. This is a connection, us connecting here as well as other people coming through and visiting. We don't have any rooms to stay in, but at least we can all visit during this time. So we had a lot of fun kind of conceptualizing this tavern theme. And then we had to go through and do a whole bunch of research about what did taverns look like in the 18th century. So we did a lot of research about that, and we started working on this tavern. How long have we been working on building it?
3 weeks?
4 weeks we've been building it proper. Lots of research before that.
This is the same room that we've always shot live streams
Nope.
in.
Shh. We're in a tavern now. Totally different. Totally a different spot.
Yeah.
And, roaring fireplace over here, bar facilities over there, and who knows what's on the other side.
Hey, real quick, somebody
Yeah.
just asked, will there be merch with the tavern logo on it?
Yes.
Yes, there will be.
Yes, there will be. Actually, that was one part of the thought that we wanted something that was a little more 18th century and kind of cohesive with the live stream, and so we'll have some of that in the very near future. We did actually probably spend almost as much time working on the logo and things like that for it as we did building the tavern itself, but
Probably more.
but we had a lot of fun with that. Lauren was working on the sign just this week. She did a tremendous job. Looks great. So
Yep, there will be mugs, probably.
mugs and other things like that. We'll have a lot of fun with the Nutmeg Tavern theme because everything goes better with nutmeg.
Yep, same guy who
Absolutely.
did all our other merch as well. Local artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right, let's have us a drink.
is it ready? What do we got for a drink?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and read this, and then you can talk a little bit while I mix it up for you.
Okay.
This is out of, let me see here.
Virginia House?
The Virginia Housewife, and this is for a traditional cherry shrub. Gather ripe morella cherries, pick them from the stalk, and put them in an earthen pot, which must be set into an iron pot of water. Make the water boil and take care to note that the water does not get into the cherries. Mm-hmm. When the juice is extracted, pour it into a bag made of tolerably thick cloth, which will permit the juice to pass, but not the pulp of your cherries. sweeten to taste, and when it becomes perfectly clean, bottle it, and put a gill of brandy into each bottle before you pour in the juice of the cherries. Cover it with cork with rosin. It will keep all summer in a dry, cool place, and is delicious mixed with water. So this cherry juice is kind of thick. I think that we're going to go half the mixture, half water, and start there and see what it tastes like. So I'll get that.
Sounds good. Yeah, so the recipe is actually kind of typical, and it runs back further than just, I mean, this one's from 1824, I think. If you go back further, you'll find similar kinds of recipes. Obviously, I think the morella cherries, really what they mean is sour cherries, not sweet cherries, at least in our kind of parlance. And they're making a double boiler, obviously, to sort of extract those juices, and then they're using something like a pudding cloth or a standard straining cloth to get just the juice out. So that sounds pretty typical. And then just putting in enough of the brandy to really keep that from going bad, and probably giving it a little bit of a zing to it, but not an extreme, amount. So it sounds like fun. And so, whoa, look at that. That's good. There's
a tall boy.
There's enough in there to. I don't know if I'll finish the live stream, but I got a lot to drink here.
I'm going to make myself one.
Yeah. This is a Ryan size glass of shrub, obviously. Let's, smells good. And you were prepping these cherries yesterday or something like that?
Yeah, well, I started prepping them last night, finished everything up this morning. I wanted to get as much juice out of them as I could.
Right. And this was an actual preservation method too. I mean, what happens when cherries, when they're ripe, and then like a week later, they're gone, right? And you want to be able to enjoy cherries for a much longer period of time, and this is how you're going to do that. You're going to make a cherry shrub, and then you'll be able to have that all the way into the winter if you prepare properly. We're having fresh shrubs, so maybe it won't have time to do all the kinds of things it might if it were 3 or 4 months old.
I'm working on some for my boys behind the computer right now.
Oh,
2, please.
They don't deserve any of this. It has a nice though cherry flavor and not too much brandy. You could probably do this with something else. I'm not sure how else you could do this, but you could probably either make a fresher version, or since we have access to refrigerators and stuff.
Cheers.
So that's I would. We'll have to save some of this up and make a batch that we can try out 3 or 4 months later.
Sure.
Yeah, see what it ages up like.
I've got a stronger bottle's worth. The mixture was a bit stronger. That I plan to sit back and see what happens with that.
There we go.
Ooh.
Smells pretty good.
That's really good.
Yeah.
You like it?
Yeah, you did
Excellent.
a good job.
Yeah.
Well,
Excellent.
They don't call me an 18th century bartender for nothing.
There we go. So excellent job. We'll keep enjoying this shrub. It's got a nice cherry flavor, but it certainly isn't like if you just went to the grocery store and you bought cherry juice and you tried to make it. It might make an interesting shrub. This has got something a little different to it.
Yeah.
I don't know what you were doing with those.
I think it's going to sneak up on us too,
Yeah.
so be careful.
Well,
everyone.
say,
one
it's- it
thing
doesn't
one
taste
thing,
very
too, is that
alcohol-y.
I couldn't find any sour cherries right now. So these are sweet cherries.
Oh, okay. There you
So
go.
I think you're missing some of that going on.
That's probably it.
Great,
Maybe
though.
a little bit of vinegar. Give it some acidity.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'll have to try it out with some sour cherries. Maybe just try some cherry juice and see what happens.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So I did want to touch base, and if you do have questions about anything 18th century or whatever, Kyle's back there and he's paying attention. I did want to touch base though a little bit more about Plymouth Plantation, and it was such a really, really good visit. It's Plymouth Plantation does first-person interpretation. So the folks that are in the village, the vast majority of them are being people. They are pretending isn't the word you want to use, but they are doing their best to portray people right from the 17th century. In fact, early 17th century. So a good 100, 150 years earlier than a lot of stuff we do. But it pertains very well, and it's a really, really interesting site because you get to see what some of that first settler kind of situation is like for people coming to North America. The folks that do the first person there do a tremendous job, and I shot a video specifically on this idea and the enjoyment of first-person interpretation, and even how to get the most out of it, because a lot of people have trouble interacting in a first-person setting. People that are visiting, and it can be off-putting to somebody who isn't quite sure how to interact. But the best way is to really just walk in like you're visiting somebody and talk to them and roll with the punches on the fact that they cannot answer you back in a modern way. But actually say, okay, this is a person from 1620, 1625. I'm going to have a conversation with them. And they can do it. I mean, a lot of times in a first-person setting, it can be very difficult for an interpreter to pull that off and to make it feel real, right? And I was really very, very impressed by the ability of the all the different people that I talk to there that do that first person, for their ability to do that. And I mean, obviously, sometimes you have a kind of like, well, how do I ask this question so that they can answer me? Because it's, it might be a little more modern or whatever. But they did such a great job, and they each person kind of comes to that with a different, their different personality and their different techniques, and so we get to see 3 or 4 different people's kind of take on how to interact with the public, because they have to really learn about how to bring first person to the modern world too. So there was a lot of different ways that they did it, and I was very, very impressed. So if you go to that site and you really want to get the most out of that village, you really have to kind of walk in and say, yeah, I'm walking into a time machine. I realize that I have to interact with them kind of where they're at, and you don't have to play along a lot, but just a little, and it is a tremendous experience.
Hey, I'm going to read a couple donations.
Oh, great.
And then I say we get into the questions.
Yes.
Okay, so $1 from James Daughtry.
Thank you, James.
Thank you very
you,
much.
James.
No comment. Just $1.
Okay.
Thank you. And then Bitter Klinger, $10. The Tavern is a great theme. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks
Thanks.
everyone for the kind comments on the Tavern. So what do you think, Kyle?
I think we need to throw a shout out real quick. Jay and her family stopped in yesterday, and they were from up by Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Grand Haven.
Grandville.
Grand Haven.
Grand Haven?
Grand Haven.
Something like that.
Somewhere up there with a grand.
It's
in
a
there.
suburb of Grand Rapids, and so they stopped in. They were super pleasant, super excited just to be here and
Yes.
see the place. So thank you so much for coming and being so
They
great.
got to see the set being worked on. I mean, the
did.
tavern. sorry.
Yeah, a couple people
said that
got
wrong.
to see it.
I don't know what you're talking about, sir.
Yeah.
I believe that they are watching right now.
Okay.
Oh, there we
great,
go.
Great.
All right, questions. Are there any ales or stouts that use nutmeg in its recipes? What is your favorite ale or stout from any time period?
For last, I'll reverse that, and just plain old English brown ales are one of, if it's a beer or ale that I enjoy, those are some of the ones, very simple, not very terribly bitter, and kind of fun, and have a nice, deep, rich history. I really enjoy those. The nutmeg in the recipe. So most of the recipes, or we really don't have much that, as we would call them, recipes for beer in the first place, because generally the brewer's doing that, or people know beer really is a pretty simple thing, and you will have ale and beer recipes, but they tend to be just straight up plain recipes, and they figure that if you were going to do embellishments, you would do them on your own. So they don't really need to explain the embellishments, just like a plain recipe for just food in an 18th century cookbook will say something like, well, season this or spice this to your taste. Well, So the recipe doesn't have to have all the complication of telling you what kind of spices might work and where. And I think the same thing's going on in brewing. They expect the brewer, if he wants to experiment with different flavors and tastes, they're going to do that on their own, and they're probably going to be fairly subtle about it, and keep those kinds of things secret too. So if you find a really good, ale recipe, you're probably not going to share it because that's your special, Nutmeg Tavern ale, right? So you won't pass that on, and so we don't have access to those kinds of recipe ideas.
I will say that cocktails specifically call for nutmeg a lot in the time period.
Definitely.
What's the difference between a tavern and a pub?
The language there, I don't think you actually see the pub word showing up that much in the 18th century, and I haven't done any research on that term itself. When it comes to the idea of taverns, inns, or there's another great word that shows up most of the time in North American things where they call them a oh boy, my brain just emptied right out. Common
cherries.
Get that man another drink.
Didn't mean to make that so strong, sir.
Yeah, I know. I was like, whew. Anyway, oh boy, somebody in the comment section will
Help John.
help me. What's that word? It's a common, or no? It's ordinary. Whew, I knew it's kind of ordinary. An ordinary is another term for a tavern type setting, and in fact, ordinary is probably what you're gonna hear them talked about in North America. But really, the whole concept is very, very similar. Large public house. It will probably have the family living in one section. It might just have a small single room where people would come and eat or drink, but all very similar. I'm not sure kind of where the pub idea comes in and where that is more of a urban kind of a setting. And seeing how those things grow up into what we have today, it would be a great, interesting study.
Are there any recording in journals or tavern life, or what taverns were like in the time period? Were they full of rowdy people? Really liked the images of the taverns before the stream took.
Yeah, there are certainly some interesting references to those kinds of settings in literature or in journals. And I think I read the one from 1836 where Barbara Trail Parr was talking about the one up in Canada that was just very, very primitive and very rough and definitely full of some rowdy folks. So, of course, some of them weren't rowdy because they were all sick, lying all like with yellow fever or something. Yeah, there are some great references to those kinds of settings. That would be another one to kind of dig up all these different ones. It'd be a great episode. I'll see if I can find some of those kind of references and read them out.
John, what do you prefer more, Hannah Glass or Amelia Simmons?
Well, they each have their own thing, right? It's hard to say. It's just like saying, what's your favorite, what's your favorite food or your favorite dish or recipe. It's like they each have their own place. And Amelia Simmons really gives you that first glimpse of how North Americans are adapting recipes. What are they using? How are they dealing with ingredient changes from, say, English cookery? And of course, Amelia Simmons, you get to see the influences of, say, German cooking and some other cooking going on in North America. And that is, the first truly American printed cookbook, 1797. People had been cooking for almost 200 years before that in North America. Nobody was really recording that, especially in a cookbook type setting. So there's so much to learn there. But Hannah Glass is one of those great cookbooks that it is sort of if that's the only English 18th century cookbook you had, you'd probably have about 90% of what you needed to know about English cookery in the 18th century. So if you're going to have one cookbook from the 18th century for English cookery, that one's a great one to have. But there are other ones that kind of fill in those gaps, and other cookbooks are handy because you can see what's what's exactly the same and what's different. And a lot of times you'll find out that some of those cookbooks, other ones, they copied about half the recipes from Hannah Glass. And you'll also find out that Hannah Glass copied recipes, from other people earlier on than her. So.
Okay, so there's some more stuff that we wanted to cover today.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this tree project.
Yeah, so I don't know. I was going to ask Aaron to have that Facebook picture.
Yeah.
Anyway, so earlier this week we started working on a larger project, and we're going to try working on. We're going to make a dugout canoe. Now the real question on the dugout canoe is, what kind of tools you're going to use, modern tools versus period tools, different techniques to work on that, and the biggest problem is, where are you going to get a tree big enough to do the canoe with? I'd been working on getting a tulip log big enough for a canoe project. Unfortunately, we weren't able to procure a tulip log big enough, and I had done some scouting on my parents' property. Hi, Mom, you're probably out there right now. Did some scouting, and a cottonwood is another choice. It's a lower level choice, but it is a kind of log that they used in the 18th, in the 19th century for making dugout canoes. Lewis and Clark expedition made many canoes out of cottonwood trees. And cottonwood's a great tree because it grows really, really quick and it grows huge. And so I was able to find a nice cottonwood on the property that was big enough. Not in the best location, but it was big enough. And so we cut that down earlier this week. Aaron and Ryan were there, and it was pretty cool.
So he's saying not in the best location because this particular cottonwood was almost hugging another larger cottonwood that was on the side of an old gravel pit next to a honey tree with honeybees swarming
in it. It's like, I don't think we want to hit the bee tree. Yeah, so it took.
We got her down though.
Yeah, we started out with axes, but we didn't end with axes.
Anyway.
I
think that we hit that thing with axes for about 2 hours though.
Yeah,
it was close to that.
Yeah. And
felt like.
And I asked Dave about a crosscut saw too.
Okay,
we're gonna try to get a crosscut saw. To me and saw. Anyway, so that was tremendous, and when that tree came down, it was.
We got it on video.
Yeah,
you all see.
I've never heard anything like that before.
It was
incredible.
Really, really cool.
And let me get a couple donations.
It fell the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
We couldn't have put it down.
Does it sound like the tree we cut down? Jeez.
Oh,
we couldn't have put it down better. Really, it was.
Man.
It was
Fell
pretty
right where it was supposed to.
You know why it went
Kyle
down?
wasn't there.
It's because I wasn't there. That's right. I wasn't there to lean on it. Jeez. Come on.
okay. I'm gonna do a couple donations. Actually, got quite a few. $2 from Michael Rose.
Thank you, Michael.
$2 from Tamara Bell.
Tamara, thank you.
Love this channel. Thank you. $5 from Curmudgeon.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you. My wife and I discovered your channel looking for recipes for a party. We have a great interest in history and didn't know what we were missing.
Yeah.
Love it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
so much.
you.
I hope you made some for your party.
Yeah. $1 from, I don't know, message retracted to just $1. Oh,
Okay.
thank you,
Got
whoever
cold
you are.
feet.
Yeah. $20 from Jade. So
Thank
great
you,
to
Jade.
meet you all yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah, it was really nice meeting you as well.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Oh, yeah. We've got tons of questions.
Great.
Let's do it.
All right. Did they have Polish vodka in taverns?
No. Really, what's going to be the main thing is if you're in the Northeast area, probably rum is going to be the big mixer there, the big alcoholic thing. Whiskey's another possible, depending on exactly where you're at and who was making it. Those are probably going to be the two biggest ones. If you're in England at the time, gin was really the big thing, and that comes in like the 1730s, 40s, something like that, and really kind of surplants and surpasses beer in ales, and actually causes a lot of societal problems because of the drunkenness that kind of comes from that versus drinking beers and ales. So even in North America, while beers and ales were still drunk and popular, and especially something like cider, which was even more popular in North America, probably rum coming out of the West Indies is going to be the biggest spirit drink.
Were tavern wenches really a thing, or is that just Hollywood?
That's Hollywood. Yeah, I don't think it's... I don't know. I haven't read anything about that, so I'm thinking that's mostly wishful thinking on Hollywood's part.
Were there tavern rights in the U.S., meaning the right to have big events at your place, or could everyone just go as he liked?
I could imagine that was a lot more of a regional kind of situation about how they sort of licensed them, and undoubtedly, I mean, you'll hear about some of that, like how there was a lot of regulation around that in different places, and other places it was probably a lot more free-for-all, especially as you go back into the frontier setting where there's a lot less law.
How did folks pay for food, wares, and board?
How did they pay for them?
I'm wondering if they mean, because we talked so much about how much bartering was taking place and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I was thinking the same thing. There is certainly a certain amount of small change, and that's going, coins that are being used in the colonies. But there's always, even in Great Britain, there was a shortage at different times. But in North America, there's a great problem with that, and so you'll find a lot of pieces of paper currency that are floating around in the colonies. They were experimenting with paper currency for quite a while in the 18th century. It didn't. I mean, sometimes it worked well. Other times, it was discounted a lot. It lost its value fairly rapidly. They were always playing with that. I think that's probably the way that most of those things were paid for. But again, it's a real regional thing. So if you're maybe down in Virginia, you might pay for it with tobacco paper, so like tobacco receipts. If you're up north, you're going to be paying for it with other kinds of specie, paper money and such like.
Will you ever do a video on colonial cocktails, such as the Stone Fence?
We'll be experimenting with some of that, specifically here in the Nutmeg Tavern, because it's kind of has to do with that. We'll be looking at some of those and kind of working harder at the research on those. It's not as easy because they don't show up in the same kind of ways, and I think a lot of that is extrapolated backwards out of the 19th century. So you kind of have to get references to them, sort of sideways references in the 18th century, and then try to figure out what they actually meant. A lot of times that means going, forward in time and saying, okay, in the 19th century, that's what this was. Is that really the same thing? It can be kind of tricky to figure out.
I think it's real. It's real tricky because, like, even now, I've never gotten a drink and then gone home and written down what it was and how great it was.
Right.
And food is one thing because it's sustenance, but alcohol is a completely different thing. So.
Right, and again, you might have had something like that and not known exactly what it was, right? Unless you begged to borrow
or had too much of something and just didn't remember.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna do some more donations.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So we did Jade's. That was the last one we did.
Yeah.
It's $5 from Jackson. Is spaghetti a fruit or a vegetable?
Good question.
It
grows on trees.
Thank you for the $5.
I think it's a fruit.
I like this.
Spaghetti fruit.
This is from Alexis. $17.76.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Thank you, Alexis.
Your videos have been a great comfort to me in a time of need. Thank you, guys.
I'm so glad that they helped you in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. $2 from Message Retracted.
Oh, no.
$15 from Fighter3. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
$2 from The History Terp. Happy to have found a fun history channel. Glad you found us. Thank you. $2 from Silver Dollar. They say, huzzah, long live the king of nutmeg.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then $2 from Simon. Were you guys fans of AMC's Turn?
we've actually sold a lot of stuff to Turn back when it was in production, and it was one of those shows where some shows, some movies and shows, they would buy things from us and they would distress them so much that you could hardly tell that what it was by the time you got done. Turn, they'd just take the stuff out of the box and put it right in front of the camera and off it went. So we could really tell. It's like, no, that was our lantern or whatever.
There were a lot of these in Turn.
Yeah. So there you go. So yeah, Turn was great. Turn was great.
Should I tell an embarrassing story about my wife in Turn?
Yes.
So my wife is a seamstress here, and her name is Nicole, and she had not been working here for very long, and turned in a big order for some costume coats for people that were in the background, and she sewed up 3 of them, and they had to go quickly, so she hurried through them, got them downstairs to shipping, and realized that she'd sewn the arms on upside down and had to rip the seams and redo them real quick before the mail went out. It was pretty funny.
And that was for Turn.
Yes.
There we go.
More questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. How did the tavern supply itself? I mean, we can go to the grocery store today, but how did they gauge their business requirements?
Many times they were run as a offshoot of the standard household, so they're going to be getting their items the same as they would for somebody with a very big family, is obviously sometimes at times they had difficulties with that, or they didn't really. They weren't all that concerned. So, like travelers would complain about the kind of food that was available. And sometimes it was very, very, very simple fare. It's like, well, yeah, I made some bread soup. There you go. That's what we have. Your choices are that, or you can go outside and eat grass. They did at times have trouble getting enough, materials, foodstuffs. But again, that was completely depending on whether you were close to town or you were, back in a traveling area that wasn't as easily accessible by people with different kinds of supplies or farmers close by.
What tavern dishes were common for the period?
Yeah, we kind of talked on that before, and I don't have as much research on that as I really want to. I have a couple people I want to tap on that question that would be better. But a lot of times it's just plain, again, straight fare that would be normal for the family. I don't know that there were that many special, tavern food things like we might think of today. Because they were just in a plain family home setting, and so you would get what the family was going to have that day.
How was hygiene handled at the taverns? I think they mean serving dishes.
How they mean what?
Serving dishes. Like how was things cleaned?
For example, Ryan keeps coughing and hacking up.
Yeah, that would.
What a
Welcome
clean
to my tavern.
Yeah.
Let me fix you some food.
Yeah, thank you. So,
You want me to freshen up that glass, sir?
No, it's good. It's good. You hear references to people eating out of common bowls. Talk about hygiene or lack thereof. I don't think they were really all that concerned about it, and there were complaints about those kinds of things that you'll read about. In fact, people had a lot to complain about taverns, and generally was, wow, I ate at this one place and it was amazing, because I didn't get sick and the food was pretty good. So the typical story is that the tavern is horrible. There's a really interesting, Henry Fielding writes about his trip to Lisbon, and he talks about staying in this particular sort of private home, and he just had nothing but problems. Of course, he liked writing about having problems, so there was that. But a really interesting read about staying in a kind of a private home tavern situation where it was just one difficulty after another.
Hey, we got some more donations to read out. This is awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you,
we
everyone.
Really appreciate it. $5 from Raw Veggie.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's no cooking going on there.
Nope. I love that you guys don't take yourselves too seriously. Really shows the professionalism.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Perfect.
$25 from Paul Beveridge. Been watching you folks and learning for over a year. Love all that you do. Keep up the great work. Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Appreciate it. $10 from John. Do you plan to visit the reconstruction of Fort Dobbs in North Carolina, or other frontier forts?
Oh, whenever I get a chance, I love to go to places like that. So I hope to very soon. I've already traveled so much this year that, well, I can't wait to get on the road and go to more places.
He also asked, "Do you plan? How do you plan to use the tavern in the future?" I mean, it's pretty much, it's the set.
Yeah, it's just for this live stream every Friday.
Yep. And he's asking about guests and interviews. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, we have some awesome stuff planned.
Yeah, we've even got people on the hook for the near future.
Oh yeah. And then $5 from Cliff. Any plans to start the monthly paid subscription on your channel? I don't know what that is.
We'll have to look that up.
Thanks for the great idea.
Do we want to? Oh, I saw somebody asked about what was on the tile, or not what was on the tiles.
Dude, I was just about to ask that question.
Oh, okay, that's on you, man.
Yeah, a lot of people are asking about the tiles. You want to explain those,
I
John?
finished up the tiles. The tiles came out of the kill this morning. I think it was. Yeah, I made them a couple days ago. I love pottery, love Delft, and a lot of times you'll see tiles around fireplaces in the 17th century, in the 18th century. There's a very common kind of a thing around the fireplaces. And these tiles, especially from the 17th century, are just so beautiful, so amazing. And so I had fun, kind of doing my own tiles. There's a boar's head, like the Nutmeg Tavern. There's a couple of those. Ships, fish. You can have people playing games. They made all kinds of tiles. By the time you get to the 18th century, they're getting a little too professional for me. They were doing a lot of transfer stuff, so they're very, very professional and not nearly as much fun. But by the time you get to that period, I mean, they're like standard illustrations, you'd put on things. So, but tiles are such a great and very, very common thing to kind of research and have a lot of fun making tiles. They came out.
We did discuss possibly doing like a video that we detail parts of the tavern here and stuff.
Yeah, I
so
think
we'll
so.
try to do that.
Yeah.
Also, they're saying that bartender is slacking on the job.
Listen, we need some folks to order some drinks.
Yeah, so if you got
This
a drink
bar
order,
is so clean.
you got a drink order, you can
see my face
kind
in
of
it.
run it through, and we'll send you a virtual drink.
All right. So this question is, as a history or French history fan, I want to learn more about American history. What book would you recommend to learn about practical life in the old times?
I don't have since I work mostly in primary documentation, I don't have a good book that I would send you to right off the bat. I'd have to do some real digging on that one, because I don't kind of attack it from that direction. So I don't have one off the top of my head, but I'll bet you a few folks in the chat will come up with some ideas.
What are late summer friendly foraged fruits, roots, berries, etc. that y'all like working with during the season?
Late summer. Around here, I mean, the main things are red raspberries and blackberries for kind of fruits that are in the wild. And we're late for all those kinds of things. Right now, we've got mushrooms of all kinds popping out everywhere for this time of year. Some of them might not even kill you. But you got to be really careful. Generally around here, most people only eat one kind of mushroom because it's the only one that is very, very safe. So that's what I stick with on mushrooms. When it comes to roots, I'm not sure how I would answer that, especially wild roots. I haven't tried cattail roots, but those are supposed to be good. edible. How about that? I don't know. You guys got any answers for that?
Cattail root tastes like potato.
Have you had it?
I have.
There you go.
What root was that?
Cattail.
Cattail. Yeah. You have a certain time period to get to them, though.
Yeah, well, and the ones I've played with have always smelled so muddy.
Yeah.
Good. It's like, I'm not eating mud. So.
Roots, no. I don't know.
Yeah, roots.
Some weeds.
Yeah.
But not roots.
John, can you address the fact that you look like Les Stroud's twin brother?
No, I can't address that. I'm not related to Les, as far as I know.
Are you thinking of exploring the Native American influence in colonial cooking, since it was a pretty big influence?
Yeah, we'll be working on that. There's a great section out of Hecka Welder's book that talks about those kinds of foods, and we'll definitely be touching base on some of those. And we have done some episodes connecting those things up in the past. The eels and corn. We've done a couple of succotash episodes. We did a whole corn series, and some of those related specifically to that. So we have done some of those things, and we'll try to do some definitely more in the future.
What common games were played in the taverns?
Draughts.
Yeah, there were other kind of games like Shut the Box and card games, those kinds of things. What you would typically think was probably a lot of dice games, maybe games of chance that maybe you would lose all your money.
Some CeeLo.
Liar's Dice was probably pretty popular.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Let me tell you a story.
Go for it.
So one of it's like everybody knows that they've been around here very long that I like books, lots and lots of books. And one of the great reference books is, this is even the wrong one. One of the great reference books is I've got a copy someplace. The Revolutionary War documents, the naval documents of the American Revolution, and it's this giant set of books. It's huge. They're giant blue books. Obviously, this is a giant blue book, but this isn't the book I wanted. Anyway, huge blue books full of all the documents, all these little correspondence between captains of ships and the Congress and everybody was in charge. It's just great reading if you would like to pick through the minutia, because there's all these little nuggets. You'll be reading along, and then all of a sudden you'll run into something, and it just kind of really takes you aback to learn this one little nugget of information. So I've been ordering up some of the copies that I don't have. So I don't know how many volume set it is. There's a huge amount of, I think volume 6 is still in 1776. So there's a lot of volumes to this. I was ordering up a copy on one of the used books places, and a package came like yesterday. It's like, your book is here, John. I rip open the package expecting a book this size, and I get instead the Pout Fish.
Man, my children love that book.
Yeah, this is not the naval documents of the American Revolution. And I tried to do research out of this, maybe base an episode on it, and
oh my gosh,
it's not.
This is called the Pout Fish.
Yeah, the Pout.
I've never
fish.
heard of this book.
The Pout Fish with a Pout face, and he spreads the dreary wearies
so
all over the place.
I'm waiting for the real.
So there's no really good nuggets after you dig through
I read through the whole thing. It was really not much there.
All right, we've got an Instagram contest.
So every
awesome.
week that we're here in the live stream, that I'm not away someplace weird or whatever, we go through the Instagram feed looking for things that pop up with the Townsend's hashtag that relate to the channel here, whether it's a history picture, or maybe somebody's done a recipe, maybe it's a piece of merch, or anything that's kind of related here to the channel. We pick out what we think is the best one for the week, and we send them a gift certificate. This week's winner is
Von Roland.
Yeah, so that was like the rope picture with
this.
That's
a really great picture.
Was it a belaying pins and stuff on a ship? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Excellent, cool picture.
Yeah.
So cool. So he's the winner, or they are the winner this week. And we will DM them. Have you talked to them yet?
Not yet. Nope. Will.
So if they're watching, then they'll know.
So here's the deal. There's also this other idea that somebody brought up.
Uh-oh. I haven't heard this.
Usually
this is dangerous.
Usually we send a gift certificate.
Yeah.
Right. But we do have some totes full of weird props and different sorts of things.
I end up with a lot of weird stuff.
So, the question is, and you guys can just hit it up in the comments section, would you rather have a gift certificate of $20 to spend at the store? Or get really cool, weirdo, one-off, who knows what it's going to be.
Kind grab bag of strangeness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, that sounds dangerous.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, I mean,
it might be a stinky shoe. Who knows?
Yeah, we could give them a choice. They could choose the one or the other.
I'd like to choose. That would be fun.
No, I mean the choice between getting the gift certificate or
I see.
Or weirdness.
Yeah. Cool.
Right?
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see. You guys talk about that in the chat, and we'll think about that. The other thing I wanted to touch base was what's going on Patreon. So we've had a lot of new Patreon people that support us that way, and I don't have the fresh names this week. I'll have fresh names next week. I really want to thank the new guys that have been popping in and supporting us on Patreon. It is so helpful to have that. The Patreon money specifically kind of goes to equipment, those kinds of things. So that really makes it a lot easier for us to kind of know, okay, this month I can get this piece of equipment or that piece of equipment. So thank you guys so much for supporting us in that way. Yeah. Very, very helpful.
We've had a huge amount of Patreon supporters stopping into the store lately.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's been awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much when you come and visit us at the store. I know it's a strange tour, but I always try to offer a tour, and you get to see the place.
Sometimes you even get to see the Nutmeg Tavern.
Right.
I give a better tour, I think.
Although you can't see the German kitchen because that's not on. A lot of people come to the stores like, we want to see the German kitchen. It's not here at this location. So.
No.
Let me get some donations real quick.
Go ahead.
Sure, man.
This is from Orange Pepper, €2.
Thank you.
Greetings from Greece.
Yes, Greece. Okay.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah, $2 from James Daughtry. Oh, he donated earlier. Thanks again. I love the Nicholas Cresswell journal.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
It is a good one.
$5 from Frank. Where is the Nutmeg Tavern?
It's here.
Right here.
We're right here. You're here.
Mm-hmm. It's right here.
You're in it. And this is $20 from... I don't want to read this name.
You got to.
Read it.
From MAGA Mexican.
Okay.
Can I get a shout out for my comic, General Washington Victory or Death? It's on Indiegogo being crowdfunded. I actually just went and looked at it. It looks really awesome.
Oh, right.
And it's called what again?
General Washington Victory or Death. Are you drawing it? Because it looks really good.
Go check it out, guys.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah. You'll have to get me the link, Aaron.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, we've covered everything that I have to, so we can go out with questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Have you found any good journals describing sea exploration?
Sea exploration. Not exploration per se, but definitely sea travel. And I've run into some fresh things here recently that are really interesting. There's a sea travel in the 18th century, 17th century. It is so kind of scary and cool all at the same time that you wonder why there isn't more sort of description of it. There's a really good, if I'm going to read historical fiction currently, or anything that's been written in the last 20 or 30 years, I'll generally read Patrick O'Brien. He's dead now, but he did the whole Master and Commander series with Aubrey and Matron and all that stuff. He was so good at looking at that primary documentation, and he's got a book of travels that are little segments of primary documentation or period writings. So it's not stuff he wrote. That's a really good book if you want to read about different people's travels. And he was really good about writing those things into his books. So, all the things that happen in the Aubrey and Matron series, they're all things, most of those things actually happened. Those kind of naval engagements or, different kinds of disasters at sea. those all happened. They didn't all necessarily happen to the same ship or the same crew like it ends up in the book, but all those things happen in the 18th century, and so those are great books to read. But if you want to kind of get a glimpse of different kinds of travel, then that book that he kind of edited and put together those stories. I wish I had the title off the top of my head, but I don't.
What can you tell us about the 18th century quote epidemic among young people that was known as the reading fever?
You got me on that one. I'd have to do some digging on that.
Did women always wear long dresses?
Pretty much. You don't really see any other things, skirts, petticoats, dresses, and how all that works. If that's the way the question goes, they generally were pretty long. The only references I've seen to other things than that are the very occasional woman that was trying to pass as a man, which happened in the Revolutionary War. And if you read in Wood Mason's journal, where he's talking about the backwoods of North Carolina, he's talking about women, and it was scandalous because their skirts only went down to just a little below their knees or whatever. So but they were in the backwoods in a primitive situation, and so they weren't keeping up with the fashion and of the day necessarily. They were. It's like, well, if I have to work hard, I can't wear as long a skirt as fashionable people.
Who were the police in 18th century America? Like, if you got mugged or something, what would you do, or who would you tell?
Well, that was a lot tougher in the 18th century, and even in England, there really wasn't. There were thief takers, sort of like private policemen that they had. It depends on the time period and exactly when that is. There's definitely a progression to those sorts of things, and what we would think of as a police force in some places civilized as Great Britain was at the time. Here in North America, we've got all these different sorts of governments and states and areas, so each one is a little bit different, and law enforcement is generally, you take those kinds of things to your local magistrate and deal with that. And if you have to apprehend a person, you have to get together people and apprehend them, right? So there isn't somebody who's like in charge of that. It's nothing like what it is today, and probably the reason why we have the kinds of things we have today is because that wasn't necessarily working out so well for them.
So what about bounty hunters? Have you read anything about that?
No.
I know that's a 19th century thing that's happening.
Yeah, there's probably things like that are going on, but I don't know anything specific about it.
All right, one last question here. What was pre-revolutionary Indiana like? I was under the impression that it was completely devoid of Europeans.
Revolutionary War, pretty much. This area, for the most part, was Indian lands. I mean, that's why it's called Indiana. So most of these areas weren't sort of turned over until much later in the 18th century. Or 19th century, like 1830s. Actually, down south, maybe there was a lot more of a settlement. We know that there were the forts that were going on. There was some fortification thing going on in Fort Wayne, kind of a trading stations. There was Vincennes that was, that George Rogers Clark took over during the Revolutionary War. So there's a little bit, but almost nothing really other than that. Other than kind of trading going on with Native Americans, that's really the only thing that's happening in Indiana in the time period.
Hey, before we go, $50 from Keltoid 5.
Keltoid 5.
Thank you.
Thank you. No
Tremendous.
question, just love the channel.
Thank you so much, Keltoid 5.
Appreciate it.
Right. So, do we have anything else we need to cover, Ryan? Are we done?
I just got to polish these cups.
Yeah, you get to work on that. I expect next week that should all be pretty shiny back there. I want to thank everyone for your just tremendous support. I mean, we get so much different kinds of support on the channel and different ways people interact with us. Everybody is so wonderful, so kind, especially, when I meet people personally, whether it's at a historic site or they come to the store. It's always so refreshing and so wonderful to connect with people, and it's always wonderful to make new friends. I go out to a site and I'll be interacting with somebody, and they'll be all shy, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, I watch your channel. Or I really want to thank folks for those kinds of things. All of the great questions today and the comments generally on our channel are so kind, wonderful, so helpful. It really. The vast majority of places, channels on YouTube, I would not bother to comment or read the comments, but I love reading our comments. So thank you so much for making the channel a wonderful place to interact with. You guys, support us so many different ways, whether it's Super Chat or it's Patreon or buying merch or just watching our videos. So tremendous. So I really want to reach out and thank you so much for all you do. And thanks today for watching.